Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. My name is Divonis, and welcome back already, but welcome back to my podcast, Trip Sitting, where I go over basic life, music, mycology, and everything in between. So today, I actually have a pretty funny topic today. Well, not funny, has funny moments in it, but it's actually what I consider my most intense trip ever. Oh, and hey, 2 posts in 2 days? Yeah, I'm trying to get on that grind. No, I'm sorry, guys. But let me just jump right into the story. So, this is whenever I took, I think they were albino penis envy mushrooms. And I got them off of this dude who I knew from another friend from high school. So, it's really sketch. Don't even know if they were albino penis envy. To be fair, they did look like it. So, he said they were. So, I believed him just because they looked like it. So, I had no reason to not believe him. And before this trip that I'm going to refer to, I actually took these before. They're actually from the same trip that I did whenever I talked about my first solo trip. So, actually, cap. These are different mushrooms. So, once I did for that trip, I did golden teacher for those. For this one was albino penis envy. For that first individual trip, I believe I took like 2 grams, 2.5 grams. But for this trip in particular, I think me and my friend, who I'm not gonna disclose any names, but I'm just gonna say my friend. Me and my friend, we were like, okay, we've done this a few times. Like we're not new to this, so we decided to do 3.5 grams because I was trying to build my way up to the pinnacle, which is the heroic dose, which everyone says is 5 grams on an empty stomach. But this particular trip was on 3.5 grams, and I haven't done the heroic dose yet, but I'll speak on my ideology of that more at the end of this. But anyways, we took 3.5 grams albino penis envy mushrooms. And I believe what we did was beforehand, we heard that drinking lemon ginger tea would help with the stomach like problems, because sometimes when you take mushrooms or any hallucinogenic, your body sees it as toxic, so it tries to like make you throw it up to get out of your system. That didn't work. I still threw up a little bit. So I actually do feel like the intensity of the trip was diminished a lot because of that. But I'm getting too ahead of myself. Anyways, so we drank the lemon ginger tea, and then we took our portions. I didn't like make it into any sandwiches. We didn't make it into any teas. We drank some tea beforehand, and then we just ate it straight up. We ate them hoes straight up. And if anyone ever tells you how mushrooms taste straight up, not good. Not good at all. But you know what? You get it down the hatch, and that's just how it was. So we ate them. I mean, then 20, 30 minutes, I'm already getting like severe stomach aches. Every time I take like any psychoactive substance, I always get like stomach aches, and I don't really know why. Because like some of my friends can do it and like not get any stomach aches, but I guess it's just depending on who you are. There could be some scientific reason for it. I'm not too knowledgeable on the physical applications of the psilocybin whenever it enters your gut. I know that your gut has a bunch of serotonin receptors, and I know that that plays a big part in the trip, but I don't really know how that plays into the whole gastro reflex whole part of it. Anyways, that's not really important. Anyways, so within like 20, 30 minutes, I started to get the stomach aches, so I went to the restroom, and I probably sat by that toilet for like a solid 10 minutes, and like it was like, usually it takes me about an hour to start to feel mushrooms, but for some reason this one was like coming on very fast and very strong. And when I tell you that I started to feel this little warbly, warm feeling from my gut start to reach my like the top of my head, it started to get overwhelming to the point where I just had to let it out. I threw up a little bit, but I tried to minimize how much I threw up just to make sure I didn't like throw up too much of the mushrooms to like ruin the trip. But I do feel like that did ruin the trip a little bit, but it was still pretty intense. But anyways, I noticed that the trip was coming on really strongly because when I threw up, I looked into the toilet, the commode, and I saw like the formation of a bunch of eyes just forming through like the little intricacies of the water mixed with the throw up. I know this sounds really gross, by the way, but I'm just detailing everything I saw while I was experiencing this trip. And it was just like so intense because I always see eyes. Like for some reason, whenever I trip, I always see eyes. I feel like things are looking at me. I feel like things are concentrating on me. And by the way, I forgot to mention this, but whenever we went into this trip, I always like to set intentions whenever I trip. I know some people just take these type of drugs and stuff like that recreationally, but I like to set an intention. So what I set my intention for was I asked to discover something new about myself. Like, I did not specify what branch of life I wanted to discover, like relationship wise, career wise. I didn't say anything like that. All I said was I want to discover something new about myself. So that was my intention. I don't really know what my friend's intention was going into it. He didn't tell me. I'm pretty sure he just wanted to have a good time, which, there's nothing wrong with that. But anyways, after I leave the restroom, after looking at those eyeballs for what felt like hours, I go into the room and I see that my friend is also starting to feel the effects of the trip. He asked me where I was. I told him all that stuff. And he told me that, oh man, you probably messed it up, because you threw up. Like, it's going to mess up the trip. I'm like, yeah, probably. But I was like, how are you doing? And he told me, he was all like, he was starting to cycle between seeing these few things in our room because we had like this really colorful rug that was in our room. So he was cycling between that, what was on the TV, and also there's this little grinder that he had that had this little rainbow effect on the top of it. He was cycling through all three of those, and he just kept looking at them one at a time. And I was kind of freaked out. And also, keep in mind, we also had our other roommate that was there at the time. He wasn't tripping, but he was just there. I don't really think that would be important for the story. I just wanted to mention that. It might be later on. I don't really have a train of thought that I'm going into. I just have a little talking points. But anyways, he was just cycling through those, and I started to get kind of paranoid because me and my roommate were talking to him, and every single time we talked to him, he'd answer, be like, yo, what's up? And then like we would start continuing to talk, and he would like not even respond to us. It's like we weren't even there in the room with him in the same like time frame. It would just be a constant cycle of us asking him, is he okay? And he'd be like, yeah. And then like we start talking again, and then he just wouldn't respond to anything else we'd say, and he just keep looping, looking through those three items that I depicted earlier. And it got to the point where I was all like, hey, do you want to lay down? And he was all like, yeah, I think I'm gonna lay down. And keep in mind, I wasn't even intending on like sitting on this trip, but my friend is like going through some shit. I'm not just gonna leave him there. Keep in mind, I'm like starting to peak at this moment. So like that carpet that I was telling you about, that had all the patterns in it, I started to focus on it too, and I started to see the most insane visuals. Like I started to see dragons breathing fire, knights riding on horses, fiery water. It looked almost like it wasn't even water; it just looked like a flow of energy. It was pretty intense. But around that time, my friend decided I'm just gonna lay down. So he went to his room. He wrapped himself in his blankets. He put some headphones on. He turned off his lights, and that was just that. So for a little bit, so I just let him do that. So it was just me and my other roommate in our living room, and I was going like not insane, but it was just like I started to get these very invasive thoughts, like, look what you did to your friend, but you ruined him. You killed your friend, like you ruined him. He's never gonna be the same because of you. Like I started to get like really, really in my own head. And to the point where I was just like, damn, bro, why do I do this? Like, what is my point? What is my reasoning for doing any of this? Like, what is my reason for living? Like, I started to get really existential thoughts. And that was going on, that persisted for like 30 minutes. And like, obviously my other friend, he's never taken a psychedelic before, that was in that room with me. Not the roommate that went to the room to lay down. My other roommate that was there. He'd never taken a psychedelic before. So he had no idea how to handle this situation. So he was just kind of there while I was just going through my whole inner monologue. And eventually, my friend that was in the other room that went to lay down, he actually texted me. He said, hey, bro, can you come in here real quickly? And I came into the room. He just needed some consolences. He was all like, hey, guys, I'm back. I don't know what the fuck that was. I just went through a little loop. I couldn't really control my thoughts and my thought process. Basically, I was just kind of just being taken for the ride. And I was like, oh, okay, bro, are you fine now though? But he was like, yeah, I'm fine now. Everything's okay. Like the trip started to come down. So he came back to the living room with me and my other roommate, and we idiotically smoked, right? And like this was around a few hours after the trip was dying down. Like it wasn't anything too intense, anything too crazy. Like this wasn't the intense part of the trip. This was like probably 3 hours after we ingested it. The trip was starting to like not subside, but rather stagnate to the point where we can actually like get our bearings. So he was like, "You want to smoke?" And I was like, "Fuck it, I'll do it. I don't care." So we smoked a bowl from his bong, and that probably magnified the trip. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that probably magnified the trip times two. Like he told me that right after we smoked, he said, "Yeah, that was probably a bad idea because this shit is coming on super strong." And he said that after we smoked, he can see literally our auras. Like he was like looking at me. He said, "Bro, I can see like this energy radiating from your body, and I can also see an energy radiating from our other roommate's body." I was like, "Oh, what do you see?" He said, "For me, he saw like this little purplish light being like that was radiating around my entire being, almost like I was emitting it myself." And then he said, for my other roommate, I forgot what color he said it was, but I remember it being like orangish, yellowish, like this little warm color. I guess he was seeing my aura because like whenever I was tripping, I was going through this little inner monologue. So I was feeling a little blue under the weather just because of what I was going through in that experience. So maybe that was what the energy I was reflecting. While my other friend, he also was smoking with us because he smoked. So like he didn't do any psychedelics, but he smoked. So he was feeling really good, like happy. So the aura that he was emitting was probably a more happier, more radiant aura. And that's whenever he told me that, I was all like, that makes a lot of sense actually. And I don't know how this connected in my brain, but in my head, I was all like, oh my God, my aura is purple. That must mean that I'm going through this little transformative period where I'm just like understanding who I am like, guys, I have no idea why this train of thought came to my mind. I'm just relaying the information. And I started to realize maybe I'm feeling this way not because other people have told me that I'm not shit or I won't be shit, but it's because I myself always verbally say that I'm not going to be shit, I'm not going to do shit, just because I compare myself to what I see online, other people that I see online, the personalities. I'm just like, Nick, everyone has their own path in life. I said my actual name. Yeah, Nick, that's my name. Anyways, I was like, Nick, you can't keep comparing yourself to others because you have a different life path than theirs, and they may be more successful than you at the same age as you, but that doesn't mean that they are better off in life than you, because success is relative, right? And success doesn't also equate to fulfillment or happiness. So like that trip was telling me that, hey, Nick, you're being very self-deprecate right now, and like I don't know why you're being this way, because you're intelligent, you have ideas, you demean yourself too much to the point to where you don't even feel like you should act out on your own goals because you feel like they're not worthy. And that's when I was like, wow, this trip, like I asked this trip to tell me something about myself, and it's telling me that I hate myself, but not in a way that I want to kill myself. It's more in a way of I just constantly bring myself down to the point where I can't even realize my full potential because I'm not even allowing myself to express my full potential. And until this day, I respect that trip so much just because I don't think I would be where I am today or like pursuing my passions as hard as I am right now if it wasn't for that trip. And I hope that my other friend who's going through that trip, who experienced that disassociation of self, he told us that while he was, this is totally off topic, but not off topic, but I forgot to mention this earlier. But my friend, whenever he went to the room, he told us that he had this moment where he just felt like he wasn't even in his own body, like he wasn't present in his own decision making. It was kind of like he was a bystander just watching his body make decisions for him. And I don't really understand I understand the concept of ego death. It's just I haven't taken a high enough dose to feel like that I've properly experienced ego death. So I don't want to speak on it in absolute manner as if I know what it is. But I do feel like he experienced some form of disassociation, and like I hope that helped him figure out his whole, his whole purpose on this planet, because I feel like a lot of people when they experience disassociation, that's their first experience where it's just like, oh, it's not just me being a part of a whole planet. It's I am a part of this I am part of this planet. It isn't me that is separate from the planet. I am the planet. I am part of it. All the energy around us isn't just energy around us, and I'm just like a barrier to that. That energy is me. I am part of this energy. So I just feel like that's my interpretation of the whole, collective intelligence, energy, things of that nature. I feel like we're all connected in energy because we're all energy. I feel like this fleshy body that we reside in is only that. It's a body, it's a vessel, and our true essence is within. And like this trip that I experienced that I'm referring to you guys, I feel like it actually helped illustrate that in a more cohesive manner to me, because you can obviously tell someone that, but until they've experienced the oneness of being with it themselves, I don't think they'll truly understand. And that's why whenever I hear people talk about these drugs and they've never even taken it, I can't really take what they're saying seriously, because how can I believe the validity of your claim if you haven't even experienced the things that you're referring to? Like, how can you say that people who go through these psychedelic experiences are experiencing psychosis when you've never even experienced a psychedelic trip yourself, or even psychosis yourself? So I know that goes into psychology, and I can get into psychology. I'm not really a student of psychology. I really am into psychology, but I don't ever claim to be a professional of anything, honestly, because I'm just an art student. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you don't have knowledge that is valuable to someone else. I'm kind of going on a ramble right now, but I basically wanted to relay all this information to just to to kind of like archive my most intense experience to this point. And I also want to mention one more thing. The heroic dose that I was mentioning earlier, that Terrence McKenna always used to reference, R.I.P. him. But I feel like I can't truly speak on these manners or truly feel as though I have become one with this community until I've taken the heroic dose. I'm just like, it's not even fear of losing myself, but it's fear of losing the me that people have become the most accustomed to in my life up to this point, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to go through this heroic dose and then come out of it a completely different person that other people around me can't even recognize or even like identify with anymore. Like, they're like, who is this new person that came out of this trip? Like, I don't want to. And honestly, if that happens, that's okay, because that's how life is. Life isn't stagnant. Life is always changing. It's on a constant flux of change, actually, and we can't be scared of the change. And I have to tell myself that I can't be scared of these changes that I might go through just because of this trip, because life is all about change, and you can't be afraid of change. If you're afraid of change, then you're afraid of progress. This is how it is, in my opinion. Anyways, I'm not going to drag this on too long. I'm just going to leave it by saying I came into the trip with the intent of learning something new about myself, and I think I actually accomplished that. I learned that I can achieve anything I want to if I get out of my own head and I allow myself to actually apply myself to the things that I wish to achieve. And I feel like that's like a universal rule that anyone can really apply to their own lives, because we all have our own internal monologues that we go through in our heads, like, I can't do this because of this, or I should be right here because this person's right here. And all of that is poppycock. Nothing is certain in life. Just because someone experienced something in life doesn't mean you will. Just because someone's successful doesn't mean you will be. Everyone has their own path, and you have to trust your process and trust that you are on the right path, and choose the path that you feel will be the best beneficiary to the future that you wish to live. And that's just my last bit of advice that I have for this podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's been your boy Divonis. It's been Trip Sitting, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.